A lot of people who drive in New York assume it takes a long trail of tickets to actually lose their license. They imagine years of bad driving, a thick stack of violations, maybe even serious incidents like crashes or clearly reckless behavior. In their mind, license suspensions are for other drivers, the obviously unsafe ones. Surprised, but as of 2026, that assumption can quietly put normal, generally careful drivers in real trouble. Under new rules, just two very ordinary tickets, the kind written thousands of times a day, can be enough to put your license on the chopping block. Pause, not 10, not 5. In some situations, just 2. The problem is that most people are still thinking with the old system in mind. They believe they have more cushion than they actually do. They think, I can afford a couple of mistakes, and I'll still be fine. Meanwhile, the state has reworked the point structure in three key ways. You're now allowed fewer points before facing suspension. Common violations are worth more points than before, and those points stay on your record longer. When you add that all together, normal day-to-day habits, creeping a little over the speed limit, glancing at a phone in slow traffic, missing a work zone sign, can now build up much faster than most drivers expect. In this video, I'm going to walk you through, step by step, how that actually plays out. Once you see the basic math of the new system, it becomes obvious how two very standard tickets can leave someone standing right at the suspension line. We'll also look at a realistic scenario where a single traffic stop could, on paper, give a driver the full number of points needed to reach that line in one night. It sounds extreme, but when you see how the rules are structured, you'll realize it doesn't require wild or outrageous driving for it to happen. We'll go through the specific changes that are being rolled out, the three types of violations that now pose the greatest risk, and a less obvious category of tickets that can quietly add points when people least expect it. If you drive anywhere in New York, commuting to work, dropping kids off, running errands, visiting relatives, or driving for your job, understanding these changes can make the difference between keeping your license and suddenly losing it. Hi, I'm Artur, and today we're going to break down one of the most important updates to New York's driver point system. Over the last several months, the state has revised multiple parts of how points are assigned and used. On paper, these look like technical adjustments, but when you apply them to real driving situations, they significantly change how quickly someone can end up in suspension territory. Many drivers still think the real danger only comes from major violations, the kind of behavior they assume they'll never be involved in. In reality, under the new structure, the greatest risk often comes from small decisions that feel harmless in the moment. Going a bit over the limit to keep up with traffic, picking up your phone while stuck in bumper-to-bumper congestion, or passing through a work zone without realizing the speed limit drops sharply. With the new rules, those routine missteps add up more quickly than before. In this video, I'll explain what exactly has changed, why the updated system is tougher than the old one, and how just two typical tickets can now reach the full number of points that put your license in danger. We'll talk about the violations that carry the highest point penalties, the minor car issues that can unexpectedly add points, and some straightforward steps you can take now so these rule changes don't catch you off guard. To understand why this matters, focus on one number, 10. 10 points is now the key number that determines when your New York license is at risk of suspension. Under the previous rules, you could accumulate up to 11 points within an 18-month period before the DMV would consider suspending your license. That didn't give you unlimited freedom, but it did leave a little room for error. A couple of less serious tickets spread out over time usually didn't bring someone all the way to the edge. That room just got smaller. Starting February 26, 2026, the suspension trigger drops to 10 points. At first glance, going from 11 to 10 might not sound like a major shift, but that's only one part of the story. Two other changes happen alongside it, and once you combine all three, lower limit, longer time frame, and higher point values, the overall system becomes much stricter than it appears on the surface. Change 1. The threshold drops from 11 points to 10. Change 2. The period during which points count against you is extended. Previously, points were counted for 18 months. Now they're counted for 24 months, a full 2 years. That extra 6 months means a ticket you received almost 2 years ago can still be affecting your total today. Violations that would have aged out sooner can now overlap more easily with newer ones. Change 3, and this is the part a lot of drivers haven't heard about yet. is that several of the most common traffic violations now carry more points than they used to. Put that together and you get the new reality. You're allowed fewer total points. Points stay active for a longer time. Many everyday violations are worth more points. Under that structure, a pattern of what looks like 2 or 3 small mistakes over a couple of years can suddenly put you very close to the suspension line. Drivers who think they're safely below any serious risk might find they're actually much closer to 10 points than they realized, simply because the arithmetic has changed. When you look at how 2 normal tickets add up under the new rules, it becomes very clear. Imagine a typical scenario. You're on the New York State Thruway. The posted limit is 55 miles per hour, but the flow of traffic is more like 65 or 70. You match the speed of surrounding cars, so you're not the one slow vehicle everyone is passing. A trooper clocks you at about 13 miles per hour over the limit and pulls you over. You're given a speeding ticket. It's frustrating, but nothing unusual. You pay it. Or maybe you go to court and get it reduced. Then you move on. A few months later, you're sitting in heavy evening traffic, barely rolling forward. You glance at your phone to check the GPS, see whether there's a delay ahead, or look at a message from home. You're not driving aggressively. You're not moving quickly. You're just in stop-and-go traffic with your phone in your hand. An officer sees this and pulls you over. Again, it feels like a minor misjudgment. You know plenty of people who have done the same thing. Under the old point system, this mix of tickets might have been a hassle, but not a crisis. Under the new one, it's very different. A typical lower-range speeding ticket now carries more points than it did before, and a handheld phone ticket carries even more. Put those together, and you're looking at a total of 10 points. 2 stops, 2 tickets, 2 everyday decisions. And you're now right at the 10-point mark where the DMV can consider suspending your license. This is where the gap between what people think the rules are and what they actually are becomes dangerous. Many drivers are still relying on their memory of the old 11-point, 18-month system with slightly lower penalties. Under that setup, 1 or 2 tickets rarely put you on the edge. With the new structure, that same behavior can now land you exactly at the suspension threshold. Now that we've gone over how the point framework has changed, the next question is, which violations are most likely to push you toward that 10-point limit? New York law has a long list of possible violations, but in practice, a relatively small number of them produce most of the points that drivers receive. Under the updated rules, 3 categories stand out as especially risky. The first is something almost everyone has done at some point: driving a bit faster than the posted limit. Not racing, not dramatically above the limit, just a few miles per hour over. Maybe traffic is moving quickly and you're simply keeping up. Maybe you're passing someone. Maybe you're distracted and your speed creeps up without you noticing. Previously, getting caught at 1 to 10 miles per hour over the limit meant 3 points on your record. Not ideal, but often seen as a mild penalty. 2 of those tickets in an 18-month window would total 6 points, still safely under the old 11-point suspension line. Under the new rules, that same level of speeding is now worth 4 points instead of 3. That single extra point makes a difference. If you receive 2 of those tickets within the new 24-month period, you'll already be at 8 points. That's 8 out of the 10 points you're allowed before you could be considered for suspension. At that point, you're only 1 phone ticket or 1 equipment-related violation away from major trouble. This matters because low-level speeding is one of the most common tickets written in the state. It rarely feels like a serious issue at the time. Many people think everyone speeds a little. Under the revised point system, that little speeding now carries more weight and accumulates faster. The second high-risk category is using a handheld cell phone while driving, including texting. Under the old rules, this was already treated seriously at 5 points. Under the new structure, it's now 6 points. That means 1 phone ticket by itself consumes more than half of your 10-point allowance. What often surprises people is how broadly phone use is defined. Many drivers assume that if they only handle the phone while fully stopped at a red light or in a traffic jam, they're effectively safe. Legally, that's often not how it works. If you're in the driver's seat in a lane of traffic, you can usually be cited for handheld device use even if your car isn't moving at that exact moment. Checking a text, scrolling briefly, or tapping a map can all qualify if the phone is in your hand. Now combine these 2 common situations. 1 ticket for going a little over the speed limit, 4 points. 1 handheld phone ticket, 6 points. That adds up to 10 points. The new suspension line. Two actions that, in the moment, might not feel especially dangerous can now place you exactly at the level where your license is in jeopardy. The third violation category has many driving instructors and legal professionals especially concerned, because under the updated system, it carries one of the highest point values you can get from a single, routine stop: speeding in a construction or work zone. Construction zones are found all over New York, on the Thruway, the BQE, the Long Island Expressway, Route 17, interstates like 390 and 490, and other major routes. If you drive regularly, you've almost certainly passed through stretches marked by orange cones, barriers, lane shifts, and work zone signs. Some projects are short-term, others last for an entire construction season. Speed limits in these areas are often reduced significantly to protect workers and account for narrower or changing lanes. The challenge is that drivers sometimes miss exactly where the speed drops, or they underestimate how far above the new limit they're going, especially when other vehicles are still moving quickly. Under the new rules, any speeding in a construction zone is now worth 8 points. That's 8 points from one ticket, even if you're not massively above the posted work zone limit. Remember, you only have 10 points to work with. A single work zone speeding ticket can leave you just 2 points short of the suspension level. If you already had a low-level speeding ticket earlier in the year, or a handheld phone ticket months ago, that one construction zone ticket might be enough to take you to or past 10. For people who spend a lot of time on highways where construction appears regularly, this creates a quiet but real risk. It's easy to miss a new speed sign at night, in bad weather, or in an unfamiliar area while following directions. You might feel like you're just going with the flow of traffic, but if that flow is now above a reduced limit, the consequences can be serious. On top of these, there's another change that hasn't received much attention: equipment-related violations. These are tickets based on the condition of your vehicle, issues with lights, visibility, inspection, and similar items. In the past, many of these were treated as fix-it matters. A burned-out tail light, a missing license plate light, a small windshield issue. Often you get a warning or a fine, but no points. Under the revised rules, several of these equipment violations now come with 1 point each. 1 point doesn't sound like much on its own, but when your total allowance is only 10, that single point can be the difference between staying at 9 and crossing into double digits, where you can face a suspension hearing. These violations are particularly sneaky because drivers often don't know anything is wrong until they're pulled over. Bolts fail unexpectedly. Inspection stickers expired during busy months. Window tint that seemed acceptable years ago might no longer meet the current standard. Under the new system, each of these issues can quietly add a point that remains on your record for up to 24 months. Those small points can combine later with speeding or phone tickets and push you into real danger. To see how quickly all of this can come together in real life, let's go through another realistic example. You're driving home late at night on Route 17 after a long day. It's raining, the road is slick, and visibility is poor. Traffic is light, so you're mostly focused on staying awake and getting home safely. Ahead, there's a construction zone that was set up earlier in the month. The regular speed limit in that area is 55 miles per hour. You're traveling around 63, which feels like a normal, comfortable highway speed. With the darkness, rain, and fatigue, you don't fully register that the work zone signs have reduced the limit to 45 miles per hour. A state trooper in the median pulls out and stops you. From your perspective, it feels like a standard "you were going a bit fast" type of stop. While writing up the work zone speeding ticket, the officer walks around your car to check your equipment. They notice one of your tail lights is out, something you weren't aware of. Then they look at your windshield and see your inspection sticker expired last month. You meant to handle it, but work and life got in the way. What seemed like one mistake now turns into 3 separate violations. Speeding in a work zone, 8 points. Tail light out, 1 point. Expired inspection, 1 point. 8 plus 1 plus 1 equals 10 points. In a single stop on a rainy night, without any crash or obviously extreme behavior, you've reached the full 10-point threshold. Situations like this are not just theory. They're the kind of scenarios that can happen to responsible drivers who are tired, distracted, or unaware of small issues with their car. Under the old system, a combination like this probably wouldn't have immediately pushed you into suspension territory. Under the new rules, it can. Once a driver reaches 10 points, things shift from the roadside to the DMV process. Typically, the next step is a notice from the New York State Department of Motor Vehicles telling you that your record has reached the point where suspension is possible. That notice usually requires you to appear for a hearing. At that hearing, officials review your driving history and the violations that brought you to 10 points. They then decide whether to suspend your license, and, if so, for how long. Suspension periods can range from about a month to as long as a year, depending on the specific circumstances and your past record. During a suspension, you're generally not allowed to drive at all, unless you qualify for a very limited type of restricted or hardship license in specific cases. That means no commuting to work, no quick grocery runs, no just this once school drop-offs, no driving for any purpose if you're not legally permitted. If you drive while suspended and are caught, that's a much more serious matter than a standard ticket. It can be treated as a misdemeanor with substantial fines, the possibility of jail time, and an extension of your suspension. On top of the legal side, there are financial consequences. In New York, points affect more than just whether you can keep your license. They can also trigger additional costs. One key example is the driver responsibility assessment. Once you accumulate 6 or more points within an 18-month period, the state can charge this extra fee. The base amount is $100 per year for 3 years. For every point above 6, there's an additional $25 per year. So if you reach 10 points, that's 4 points more than the 6-point threshold. For extra points at $25 per year is another $100 annually, on top of the base $100. That means $200 per year for 3 years, a total of $600, paid directly to the state, separate from the fines or court costs you already paid for the tickets themselves. Then there's your insurance. Insurance companies regularly review customers' driving records. Multiple violations, particularly those with high point values or associated with a suspension, can cause a sharp increase in premiums. Some drivers see their rates double. Others might face increases of $2,000 or more per year. Those higher costs can remain for several years. Over a 5-year period, it's not hard to see how this can add up to $10,000 or more in additional insurance expenses, all from a relatively small number of tickets. Beyond money, there's the practical impact of not being able to drive. For people whose jobs depend on driving, rideshare or delivery drivers, contractors, home health workers, field technicians, sales professionals, losing a license can mean losing their income, at least temporarily. Even if driving isn't in your job description, your daily life changes. A 20-minute drive might turn into a 90-minute commute with buses and trains. Simple errands require help from friends or family. Getting children to school, visiting elderly relatives, or attending medical appointments becomes far more complicated. Many people don't realize how much they rely on the ability to drive until it's taken away. Some end up changing jobs. Others move closer to work or to public transportation. For a lot of people, the loss of independence is as difficult as the financial hit. This is why understanding how the new system works, before it affects you, is so important. Once the points are already there, your options are more limited. Being proactive is your best protection. So, what can you do now to reduce your risk under the new rules? First, find out exactly how many points you already have. Don't rely on memory or guesses. Because points now count for 24 months, a ticket you received almost 2 years ago might still be affecting your total. The safest approach is to log into the New York DMV online system or request an official driving record and review your current point total and the dates when those points were added. If you see that you're already at 6, 7, or 8 points, that's important information. It means you're closer to the 10-point line than you might have thought, and even one more ticket could create serious problems. Knowing the real number allows you to adjust your driving habits and consider additional steps, such as courses or legal advice, before you hit the limit. Second, make sure your vehicle itself isn't quietly setting you up for extra points. Set aside a few minutes to walk around your car and check the basics. Do all tail lights, brake lights, and turn signals work? Is your license plate clearly visible, properly attached, and lit? Is your inspection current? Are there any large windshield cracks that affect your view? Does your window tint appear very dark? These may seem like small details, but under the updated system, some of them can result in point-carrying tickets if noticed during a stop. Replacing a bulb, scheduling an inspection, or fixing minor equipment issues is almost always cheaper and easier than dealing with a point you could have avoided. Doing a quick self-check now and then, or asking your mechanic to review these items during routine service, can prevent unnecessary violations. Third, consider taking a state-approved defensive driving or point reduction course if you already have points. In New York, eligible drivers can take such a course to reduce the number of points that count toward suspension by up to 4. The points don't vanish from your full history, but for the purpose of deciding whether you cross that 10-point line, up to 4 points can be removed from the calculation. For example, if you currently have 6 points, completing one of these courses could bring your effective total down to 2 when the DMV looks at suspension risk. Being at 2 points instead of 6 gives you much more room if something goes wrong later. These courses typically take about 5 or 6 hours, and many are available online. The cost is usually modest compared with the fines for even one ticket, and in many cases insurance companies offer a discount for completing them. Beyond those proactive steps, there are 2 driving habits that can significantly lower your chances of getting the highest risk tickets. First, be especially careful around construction zones. Whenever you see orange signs, cones, or lane shifts ahead, assume there may be a reduced speed limit. Even if you drive that route every day and know the normal limit, treat each work zone sign as current information. Check your speedometer and ease off the gas. Avoid using cruise control in or near work zones so you can quickly adjust if the speed changes again. Second, change how you handle your phone while driving. With handheld phone violations now worth 6 points, keeping the phone out of your hands is one of the most effective ways to protect yourself. Before you put the car in gear, set your GPS, start your music or podcast, and then place your phone somewhere you can't easily reach. A bag, a center console you don't open while driving, or even the back seat. Use hands-free options for calls if needed. If you truly must respond to something urgent, pull over to a safe spot and stop the car before touching the phone. The minor inconvenience of stopping is nothing compared to the long-term cost and stress of 6 additional points, higher insurance, and possible suspension. All of these changes lead to one clear conclusion: the room for error on New York's roads is getting smaller. The updated point system takes effect on February 26, 2026. Once it's in place, the rules we've discussed will apply statewide. With fewer total points allowed, higher penalties for common violations, and a longer period during which points remain active, everyday decisions can have larger consequences than they did in the past. A little extra speed in a work zone, a quick phone check in traffic, or a minor equipment problem you didn't notice may not feel like major events in the moment. But under the new system, they can combine to put you right at, or beyond, the suspension line. Drivers who understand these changes ahead of time are in the best position to avoid that outcome. By checking your record, keeping your vehicle in good condition, considering a defensive driving course if you have points, and adjusting a few everyday habits, you can stay well below the new 10-point threshold. This video is for general informational purposes only and is not legal advice. Rules and enforcement practices can change, so always confirm details with official New York DMV resources or a qualified professional if you have questions about your specific situation. Understanding the system now gives you the best chance to protect your license, your finances, and your ability to drive.